Hello, good morning. Let's talk about the topic regarding market equilibrium sa ating program Master of Economics, Microeconomics. No, market equilibrium po tayo ngayon. No? Let us study and analyze. So, ang ano natin diyan, paano ba nangyayari yung sinasabing equilibrium? Saka when we talk about equilibrium, yung equilibrium, it pertains to balance, right? So, ibig sabihin, balance siya. So, balance yan pag sinabing equilibrium. So, let's uh, pull the first data that we have. Okay? Pertaining to this. Okay. So, this one. So, uh, if we're talking about equilibrium, let me try to enlarge this one here. So, when the supply and demand intersects with each other, o pag nagbanggaan yung curves na yan, ng demand and supply, ay magkakaroon tayo, doon natin matatagpuan yung sinasabi nating equilibrium. So, dito sa graph, makikita ninyo, we have the y-axis, yung price, and dun sa x-axis pertains to the quantity. Yung pinaka may red dot, yung red dot na yan, kung saan nagkasalubungan yung supply curve and demand curve, yan yung magiging equilibrium natin. No? Kung makikita ninyo. So that is our equilibrium at 2 pesos, no? As its equilibrium price. And makikita ninyo 7 ang kanyang quantity, and that is the equilibrium quantity. So equilibrium is a situation in which the market price has reached the level at which quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Yan na nga yun, ano? They equate, no? Then we will have an equilibrium price, no? And that balances the quantity supplied and quantity demanded, right? So as you will see, we have 2 pesos there. Then equilibrium quantity is the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded at the equilibrium price. So that is what we meant by that. So let me just clarify this so that you can understand it clearly. So when we talk about equilibrium, pag sinabi natin equilibrium, ang ibig sabihin yan, doon nagkakasundo yung natawag natin mga seller at buyer sa takdang presyo. Kaya pag nagkasundo yung dalawa na yan, yung buyer at seller, doon napapasok yung ating equilibrium price at doon din yung equilibrium quantity na tinatawag natin. So, that is what we meant by that equilibrium. Okay, so let's check the other data here. Okay. So this one, let's look at the law, right? Now this pertains to the law of supply and demand. Now, generally, I've already explained this dun sa aking last video, but now generally, as a price increases po, the people are willing to supply. Siyempre, pag tumaas yung presyo, the sellers, they are willing to supply more, and syempre if the price increases, the demand will be lessened. Syempre ayaw bumili ng mga consumer pag mahal, and then vice versa po when the price falls. That is what we meant by the law of supply and demand. So surplus is what we meant by a situation in which the quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. Ibig sabihin po ng surplus, mas excess, sobra yung supply kaysa demand. Sobra yung supply, kesa sa gusto ng mga tao. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng surplus. So, pag sinabing surplus, it's an excess, right? Excess po yun. Pag sinabi naman natin shortage, a shortage is a situation in which quantity demanded is greater than the quantity supplied. So, kakapusan po to, shortage. So, ibig sabihin nito, mas mataas ang demand kaysa sa supply. So, if you will notice here, doon sa baba nila, no? Doon sa surplus, the quantity supply is greater than the quantity demanded, and in shortage, the quantity supply is less, no, compared to the quantity demanded. Okay, so that is what we meant by that. So let's check the other image so that I can show it to you and explain. All right, this one. Okay, ito. Tingnan natin mabuti. Okay. So kung makikita ninyo guys, makikita ninyo dyan, we have surplus and shortage. Where can we find surplus and shortage? So if you will say, dun muna tayo sa excess supply, right? Sir, paano po ba namin malalaman pag surplus dito sa graph? Ganito yun guys. Tignan nyo muna yung demand curve, right? Look at the demand curve, okay? Then, look at the supply curve, right? Naka-indicate naman dyan, nakasulat, demand, supply. Yung line ng demand at saka yung line ng supply. Yun yung tinatawag nating curves. So, when they intersected, andun yung equilibrium. Ayan o. 2 pesos, then at 7 quantity. Right? So, that's the equilibrium point which is accepted within the market. Equilibrium price. Now, kung makikita ninyo, ang sabi kasi doon kanina sa binasa natin, pag sinabing surplus, it's an excess. Sumobra. Anong sumobra? Supply. O, tignan nyo yung demand. Right? Tignan nyo yung demand. So, at the price po, at the price of 2 pesos and 50 centavos. Saan nyo makikita yung demand? Alright? At 4 quantity. Okay? 4 quantities lang. So, dito, inassume natin na at 2 pesos and 50 centavos, ang quantity lang na kaya nating i-supply is 4. Alright? It's only 4. Right? Dito. So, ibig sabihin nito, ang kung yan po ang equilibrium point. But the thing is, kung makikita ninyo, ang supply dito sa market na to ay maabot ng 10. Alright? Ng 10 ang supply niya. So, from the demand na ang gusto lang mabili is 4, no? Is 4. Ang supply natin dyan ay 10. Okay? Sa 4 na demand, ang kayang isupply ng ating seller ay 10. So, kung mapapansin ninyo, tignan niyo yung red bracket. Meron tayong, anong tawag dyan? Discrepancy. Alright? Kasi nga, ang gustong bilhin lang ng tao ay 4 na quantity supplied. No? 4. Pero kung diyan yung ating equilibrium point, that's alright. Kasi 4 lang talaga, no, ang magbebenta para sa halagang 2 pesos and 50 centavos. But the equilibrium price, no, was set sa 2 pesos. Ngayon, ang nangyari dito, itinaas kasi yung presyo. The price was increased to 250. So, ngayon, ang gagawin niya, kaya nilang gawin ng mga tao, 4 na lang ang kayang bilihin na quantity. But, ang sinusupply ng seller ay 10. No? It is indicated by looking at the red bracket, no? Surplus. Alright? So, that's what we meant by it. Ngayon, in terms of what we call as shortage, so let us look. Kanina, sinabi natin sa pag-uusap natin kanina na ibig sabihin nito, konti lang yung supply. Alright? Kaya tinatawag nating shortage. Pero marami ang may gusto. So kung makikita ninyo yung bracket, no? Red bracket, it indicates the discrepancy. No, na dapat ay kung makikita ninyo, dun siya dapat pumalo sa equilibrium na 2 pesos. But the thing is, ang supply natin dito, kung titignan niyo yung supply curve, nandun lang sa 4, no? 4. Ngayon, ang gusto ng tao, ang idinidemand nila, 10. So, the red bracket shows the discrepancy, alright, in this excess demand, alright? So, ibig sabihin, lalabas dyan yung shortage, kakapusan. So, yun lang naman yun eh. Yung surplus, sobra. Sobra yung supply. Sobra yung supply. Alright? Kasi yung demand niya, hanggang doon lang. So, 4. Sa surplus na graph na yan. Kung makikita nyo dito sa kaliwa. Pero dito sa kanan, kung makikita ninyo, shortage. Kasi, baliktad yan, kabaliktaran. Shortage, ibig sabihin, mas marami ang gustong bumili. Kaso nga lang, yung supply natin, konti. Alright? So, that's what we meant by that. Okay? Okay, so let us move to the other topic. Right? So, we've already explained that to you. Now, this one, let me show this. So, ano ba yung mga changes in equilibrium sinasabi? Ito na yung mga movements and shifts na to, guys. So, 3 steps in analyzing equilibrium movement. So, number 1, decide whether the event shifts the supply curve, the demand curve, or in some cases, both of the curves. Number 2 is decide whether the curve shifts to the right or to the left. Number 3, use the demand and supply diagram to compare the initial and the new equilibrium. So, to be able to explain this to you, let me show you the graphs, no, that we needed to study. Okay, but before that, let's look at the at this point. So kasi dito sa ating graph, sinabi ko na yan sa una kong mga video that we have shifts and movements along the curves, no? So let's look at this one. So changes po in the determinants of the supply and or demand results in a new equilibrium price and quantity. So when there is a change in supply or demand, the old price will no longer be an equilibrium, right? So instead, there will be a shortage or surplus, and the price will subsequently adjust until there is a new equilibrium. Now here, if we're going to look at the picture here, so a change in supply will result to a change in the supply curve, and the change in demand will result to a change in the demand curve. So this one shows us what we call as the shifts. So if there's a change in supply or a demand, the curve, the supply curve or the demand curve may shift to the left or shift to the right. Kaya nga binanggit ko na to sa aking unang video na pag nag-shift yung curve, no, ng supply and demand curve sa right, it's an increase. When it shifts to the left, it's a decrease. Okay? Now, in terms of movement, yung movement na to, no, ang ibig sabihin nito, the determinant is the price. Doon lang tayo nakatingin sa presyo. Kaya hindi tayo lalabas dito ng curve. We're not going to move out of the curve, right? Outside the curve. So change in quantity supplied is a movement along a fixed supply curve, right? So movement yan sa loob lang ng curve. The change in what we call as quantity demanded is a movement along a fixed demand curve. So yan po ay movement lang sa loob ng demand curve. Yan ang tinatawag nating movement. Pero pag shift, we're talking about the non-price determinants which will change the supply and demand curve and move it to the right or to the left shifts. Alright? So, That's the difference between the curves and the movements, all right? So now let's look at the graph so that you can understand. Okay, let me pull this first graph. So yung unang graph natin pag-usapan ito. There. Let's talk about change and demand. So kung makikita nyo, pag change and demand, papalo yan sa kanan. So it's an increase. So unchanged dyan, no, yung red. Yung red curve indicates a change in demand. So there is an increase, all right? Increase of demand because from the D1 or the original demand, we moved it to D2 or the new demand curve, right? So from the original equilibrium point, no, nagkaroon tayo ng panibagong equilibrium point from 2 pesos equilibrium price because of the what we call as the hot weather. The demand for the ice cream was increased. So nung nag-increase po yan, tumaas yung price kasi mainit, 'di ba? Ganun naman talaga eh. So naging 250. So another new equilibrium so it's a new equilibrium price, right? So it's a shift to the right. Pero pag nagkaroon ng pagbabago yan at bumaba ang presyo na, mag-shift to the left na yan, pababa. Alright? So it will be a decrease. But now, it's an increase for the demand curve. Okay? Next is, let's talk about the supply. Let me pull this picture here. Ito na. Yan. Let's study this. Change in supply tayo. Now, if you will notice the red line which pertains to S2 or the new supply, no, that is the new supply curve. Itong red line na yan. So it moves to what we call as to the left. No? It shifts to the left, no? So pag nag-shift yan, guys, no? Ang mangyayari niyan, it is considered to be as a decrease, right? It will be a decrease. Kasi kung makikita ninyo, tumaas yung presyo ng asukal. So pag tumaas yung presyo ng asukal, marireduce din yung supply ng ice cream kasi tumaas nga yung presyo ng asukal. So it will move to a new equilibrium point, an equilibrium price. Alright? At kung makikita ninyo, we have the S1, which is the original supply curve. And then we have S2, the new supply curve. Right? And that pertains to a new price equilibrium at the price of 2 pesos and 50 centavos. So magiging konti kasi nga nagkaroon ng what we call as an increase in the price. So the supply of the ice cream was reduced or lessened or decreased. Alright? So that's the what we call as the shift. Shift po ang tawag yan na shift. Kasi pag movement sa loob lang ng curve. Alright? Pero to shift. Alright? Okay, so napakadali lang naman pong intindihin. Susunod po natin yung ito. This part might complicate you. Kasi talagang salu-salubong na siya yung mga ano niya. Yan. So salu-salubong na sila at madami pa. Kung makikita natin, so this pertains to a change in both the supply and demand. Alright, here, as you will notice, dun sa first graph tayo sa A, price rises, quantity rises. Kung makikita nyo, how are we going to look at it? Inisip mo lang itong glass ko. Sa graph na yan. So, tignan nyo mabuti yung graph at ating i-analyze. Okay. Now here. Alright. So, we have a supply curve and a demand curve. The original supply curve and the demand curve, I colored blue. blue yung color ng original supply and demand curve, right? Yung bagong supply and demand curve, yung bago, kulay pula. Dito sa A graph. Tingnan niyo mabuti. So what happened? Let us look first doon sa demand curve, no, sa D1. So from D1, it shifted to D2. So there's an increase in the demand, right? There's an increase in the demand, no? Naging talagang maraming gustong kumuha, no? Nagde-demand sa product na 'yan. But the thing is, tignan natin yung supply curve. The supply curve shifts to the left, no? From S1 to S2. So nagkaroon tayo ng decrease, no? So there's a small decrease in supply, right? So you will see there as the price rises, no? You see, makikita naman ninyo diyan the quantity rises, no? Tignan natin. So yung kaya siya nag-decrease kasi nagkaroon siya ng what we call as at sumunod lang din siya, no? Sumunod lang din yung demand, no? Yung demand at yung what we call as the supply curve, the S2 and the D2 nagkasalubong sila, right? Yung panibagong supply curve and demand curve. So it will create a new equilibrium at the price of 2 pesos. Alright, makikita nyo. So it originated from 1 pesos, right? Because if you will notice, we follow the demand curve, and then sumunod yung supply curve, right? So the demand curve increased, the supply curve decreased. So nang ganun nang mangyari yon, ang nangyari yon, nagkaroon tayo ng equilibrium, the new equilibrium point. Alright? So if you will notice from Q1 to Q2, quantity 1 to quantity 2. So nagkaroon tayo ng rise in quantity, no? And we have a new equilibrium point pertaining to the ice cream cone, no? Okay, so study that. So we have a small decrease in supply and a large increase in demand. Thereby, it created a new equilibrium. Okay? So, ang ginawa talaga, kasi marami ang demand dito, tumaas yung supply, tumaas yung price, tinaasan yung price, but the thing is, the supply was decreased. Alright? Kasi, ganito ang kanyang principle. Kung sa minimal point ng product, kaya mo namang magbenta para tumubo ng malaki, you don't need to produce more, no? Ganyan ang principle diyan sa ating graph. Hindi ibig sabihin na once na tumaas yung presyo, tataasan mo rin yung quantity supplied. The thing is, kung yun ay supply lang, if that is only the supply, but the thing is, we intersected supply to the demand. So dapat maglalaro yung supply in terms of the demand. Alright? Kaya ganyan ang nangyari, no? Pero maganda't maganda kung supply lang ang pinag-uusapan, dahil pag supply, pag tumaas yung presyo, tataas din yung quantity supplied. Kaso ibinangga natin siya sa demand. Kaya kung makikita ninyo, magiging iba yung kalalabasan. Right? Tumaas nga yung demand, kinonti naman yung supply. Dahil kikita rin naman sila ron ng malaki. Kesa naman, mag-supply sila ng katakot-takot, no? Hanggat bumaba yung demand, sila naman ang malulugi. Pag nag-supply sila ng katakot-takot, magkakaroon sila ng what do you call that? Surplus. Right? So, ang binabantay natin dito, guys, ng mga seller, yung surplus. Ayaw nilang umabot sa surplus kasi malulugi sila. Okay, so that's graph A. Graph B naman, graph B, the price rises, the quantity falls. Alright? Kanina, sa A, the price rises, the quantity rises. Right? But dito, kung makikita nyo, the price rises, but the quantity falls. Okay, let's study this. Okay, so the original demand and supply curve is blue. The new demand and supply curve uh, is colored red. Alright, tignan natin. Sa demand tayo, demand. Yung movement ng demand, there's an increase, but the increase is only minimal. Maliit lang yung increase ng demand. Pero tignan natin, nagkaroon ng decrease ng supply. Malaki, no? Malaki yung gap. So kung makita natin, alright, so from that initial equilibrium or the original equilibrium point, move to what we call as a new equilibrium point. Na lessen yung tinatawag nating quantity supplied. Bakit? Kasi tignan nyo yung gap. Ang laki ng gap. Alright? Pero yung demand niya is maliit lang. Makikita nyo. Hinabol ng supply yung demand dito. Alright? Hinabol ng supply yung demand. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-supply ng sobra-sobra dahil nga malulugi siya. So dito, hinabol ng supply yung demand kung makikita ninyo sa graph B. So, habang tumataas yung presyo niya, yung quantity supplied bumaba. Alright? Yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina na why do you need to, what you call that, supply more and more and more if the price is too high? So, mangyayari niyan, madidecrease yung supply kasi hahabulin niya yung demand. Alright? Here in this graph. Alright. So, makikita ninyo sa graph na to, sa B, the B graph, maliit lang yung shift nung demand curve, pero mas malaki rito yung shift, no, nung supply curve. Maliit ang demand, no? So, ibig sabihin niyan, pumalo sa kanan is an increase, alright? But dito sa supply curve, malaki yung kanyang diferensya dahil it shifts to the left, so it's a decrease. Alright? It decreases. So, kasi hinabol niya yung quantity demanded. So, hindi niya kailangang mag-supply ng sobra kasi magiging surplus yun. Alright? So, that's how this supply and demand can be interpreted. Alright? So, I hope that you understand our topic this morning, and please subscribe to my channel and then watch, like, share, and comment. Then please do not forget to ring the bell to notify you for my upcoming videos. So, dyan na lang po tayo at ingat po tayong lahat ngayon. God bless, and God bless the Philippines. Bye-bye.